Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome to our first ever Earth Day Sustainability Panel. This panel discussion is hosted by the Shaker Historical Society and the Nature Center at Shaker Lakes. And it includes a variety of people from a variety of roles in the Shaker community and larger Northeast Ohio area. This is a blanket reminder to everybody watching and everybody involved in this panel that this is being recorded and broadcasted live via Zoom to our Facebook Live and will be available after the panel is over on Shaker Historical Society's Facebook and YouTube page, possibly also the Nature Centers as well, and everybody involved here potentially. But it will be available on our YouTube page and Facebook page. So should you miss any part of this panel or want to watch it every day for the next 10 years, it will be available for free on those platforms. So a little introduction. My name is Allison Henline, and I'm the Education and Outreach Manager at the Shaker Historical Society. And I am joined by my co-moderator, Erica Prang, who is the Education Director for the Nature Center at Shaker Lakes. And to introduce our panelists. So we're going to go in order of which we're going to be talking tonight. So on your screen, you should be able to see Kelly Baker. Just wave, there you go. Kelly Baker is, she works for the Shaker Heights Public Works Department. Michael Peters, nice little wave there, who works for Shaker Heights. He's the Shaker Heights Sustainability Coordinator. Mike Vihar, he is the co-founder of 319 Coffee. Daniel Brown, who works for Rust Belt Writers, and Jody Mitchell, who works for Perfectly Imperfect Produce. So now this panel will be more of a question and answer discussion sort of style format. Anybody watching live can feel free to comment either in the Facebook comments or in the Zoom chat if you are joining us via Zoom. We will do our best to answer your questions as they come up, and we do have some prepared to get the ball rolling. Please feel free to ask or comment throughout this discussion. Even if you're watching this down the line, we would be happy to kind of review those questions and answer them as best we can via email down the line. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have. Feel liberated in asking anything. We want you to be as involved as you want to be. So please feel free to do that. I would now like to ask the panelists to give a brief introduction of themselves and their role, as well as what sustainability means to them. So we're going to start with Kelly Baker from Shaker Heights Public Works Department. So go on ahead and introduce yourself and your role and what sustainability means to you.
Well, hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. I really appreciate it. I'm the Administrative Coordinator for the Public Works Department with the City of Shaker Heights. I'm also a Master Recycler through the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District. And my director, Patricia Spees, has tasked me with educating the citizens of Shaker about recycling by creating opportunities to speak with residents, by creating materials such as the thing behind me to educate. And currently we're reconfiguring the recycling center with better signage to help Shaker recycle easily when they come to the service yard. Before COVID, I was attending block parties, I was talking to residents, I was attending city events. Obviously that's come to a halt. I do think it was making a difference. I'm hoping to get back to that once, we can socialize a little more freely. I'm just really glad to be here.
Excellent. So next up is Michael Peters with Shaker Heights Sustainability Coordinator.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So I'm Michael Peters. I am the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Shaker Heights. And in that role, I help both the city in its efforts to be more sustainable, as well as residents. And so a lot of what we do is responding to the wants and needs of residents and our businesses and different ways that they want to engage with sustainability, and then just figuring out ways to make the city more sustainable in its operations. And I came to this, I'm a boomeranger, so I grew up in Northeast Ohio, was away for a long time and then came back, and just, had the privilege of seeing how sustainability is done in a lot of different places and different cultures, and am not at all ashamed of stealing other people's best ideas. So that's, I think, a big part of my job is just bringing those here to Shaker.
Very, very cool. All right, next up on the docket is Mike Vihar with 319 Coffee.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. My name is Mike Vihar. I'm co-founder of 319 Coffee. You probably know our cafe at the corner of Van Aken and Lee. We also have a cafe in Ohio City. We started about 4 years ago out of a passion to kind of use coffee as a vehicle to support communities, both locally and internationally as well. So our story of sustainability really is a global one where we can really pick and choose and decide what relationships we want to have with cooperatives or the producers that we work with and purchase our coffee from. Then obviously the coffee has to make it here to the States, get roasted as efficiently as possible, and then get into everybody's hands either via a bag of coffee or a cup at the cafe. So there's a variety of ways that we try and be sustainable throughout that entire process, including prioritizing working with small farmers specifically. So yeah, we've been all about sustainability from day one, and it's a fun business to be in for that, and we're happy to support the Shaker community.
Thank you for being here. Next up is Daniel Brown with Rust Belt Writers.
Hey everybody, it's really here alongside such awesome panelists. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Dan. I'm one of the co-founders of Rust Belt Writers. We're an organization that's been around since 2014. Our whole mission is to feed people and not landfills. And we do that by providing folks with an alternative to landfills for their food waste. So a significant percentage of the food that we grow in this country will end up sent to landfills, which helps to exacerbate runaway climate change, which I'm not all that big of a fan of. And then from the food scraps that we pick up, we make compost. And from that compost, we make soil blends, which we sell here regionally to help the effort to allow people to grow more of their own food and plants for themselves. And we sell that under the brand Tilth Soil. Yeah, really excited to be here and excited to talk more.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. And last but certainly not least, Jody Mitchell with Perfectly Imperfect Produce.
Yes, thanks for having us as part of this great panel today, and happy Earth Day, everybody. Perfectly Imperfect Produce was started in Cleveland, downtown Cleveland, about 5 years ago. And we are, sorry about that, that's my cat who loves Zoom sessions. We started 5 years ago out of our mission to reduce food waste, and we partner with Rust Belt Writers with that. And we also want to promote healthy food access for all. So we purchase produce, we call it rescuing, but we purchase it from local wholesalers and local farmers, and we pack that up into mixed boxes like the one you see behind me. And those are delivered to your home or businesses or community pickup locations. We offer a variety of boxes, and we just announced a new product called it's still our rescued produce, but it's diced and easy. It's a meal kit, recipe kit, and also salad bowl, grain bowls, and snacks. So it's all diced prepped. So for the busy professional who wants to eat healthy, they can order those similar to our other boxes.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Erica, who's going to ask a couple of questions for the entire panel. So go ahead, Erica.
Yes, this is so exciting that we have such a mix of professionals that are all working to promote sustainability in the community. So the first couple questions are focusing on your careers. I'm actually going to bundle the first two together since they're similar. So what made you personally interested in pursuing this profession? And then how does that play out in the day-to-day at your workplace? Like, what is it that you're actually doing most of the time? And we'll start with Kelly Baker again. We'll just keep that in order.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think the profession chose me more so. I do like to serve the community, and working with the city of Shaker Heights, I've had a few different jobs throughout the city. And when I landed in the Public Works Department, I really felt like I was serving. And, you know, my boss wanted to do some more with recycling, and it was a bigger task than just an occasional thing. So I took the Master Recycler course, and it's just been great ever since, just talking to people about it, and it's been fun.
Thank you. Michael Peters, what about you?
So, my first run-in with sustainability, and this is definitely going to date me, but was in 2004. So I was working for a bank, and we had a client who wanted to build what they were calling a LEED building. And everyone kind of looked at each other and was like, what are they talking about? And why do they want to spend more money building this? And as we really dug into it, we kind of understood why, and it made a lot of sense. So it made a lot of sense not only from what we would now call sustainability, what we didn't call sustainability then, but also economically. And so that was a big, I think that was when the light bulb went off and said, oh, wow, we really can, do things better, right? We don't always just kind of have to do the bare minimum to get by. We can really, make an investment in sustainability, and it really pays, all kinds of dividends. And so, for me, when I came back to Cleveland, that was one of the things that I wanted to focus on. And, fortunately, have had the ability to do that. And so, today, my typical day, is kind of all over the place, right? So it kind of depends on, what we're doing as a city, the different aspects that we're looking at. So it could be looking at, adding an EV to the city's fleet. It could be, doing the EV charging so we can add an EV to the city's fleet. Could be working with Rust Belt riders to figure out how we get more residents to sign up, or how we get, Firehouse number 2 to start using their compost bin. So it's kind of, all over the place, but all, I think really purposeful. And for me, I think that's what makes it really fulfilling.
Mike?
So my journey in coffee started mostly I'm actually an engineer by trade, and did a lot of development work in Central and South America throughout college and after college. And so I was always working in some sort of technology related to efficient wood burning stoves in rural parts of Bolivia, Guatemala, Ecuador, or water filtration systems, things like that. So a lot of my previous life was involved in those types of rural communities. And just being on the ground and working through some issues that were in those areas at the time. And so when I got the opportunity to start this company with a couple of really great partners, it was kind of a no-brainer because it allowed us to have a direct impact on those communities by paying a higher price for a quality cup of coffee or a quality coffee bean. And that was 4 years ago, and here we are now. And so a typical day for us is running our cafes and serving the Shaker community and the Cleveland community with passion and purpose and hopefully a smile. And through a pandemic, which has been crazy, obviously. And then myself finding a market for our coffee beans so that the producers that we purchase from, at the end of the day, their coffee gets sold and people get to enjoy it. And creating a relationship with those sourcing partners. And like I said, those small farming producers on the ground, and just being a part or helping spur on the initiative to work with more organic practices, avoid using pesticides and things like that. So, and the best part is I get to tell our story every day. And that's my favorite part of the job.
Thank you. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, my path to doing what I do is, I don't know, like a strange one, I guess. Maybe not all that strange. So I studied ethics in college, like a strange person does, and became very interested in, there's lots of problems in the world. Which one sort of most resonates with me? And to me, sustainability and the existential crisis of the climate crisis just touches so many issues, from environmental racism to public health to where we get our energy from. It seemed to me like the one thing that if I could find a way to like make a living doing that, I could achieve a lot of good and have a life full of meaning. But as a recently out of college kid does, first job I got was at a restaurant. And so while I was working internships in community development, on nights and weekends was working at restaurants, and saw the opportunity for collaboration between those two worlds, in which we can help to improve public health, combat climate change, all by better connecting people to where their food comes from, but also where it ends up going. And so nobody was doing anything about food waste at the time, which if anyone's ever worked at a restaurant, you realize it's like the elephant in the room. And so we literally, myself and business partner got a mountain bike, had a trailer welded to the back of it, and we literally just started picking up food scraps a few hundred pounds at a time. If you fast forward to today, it's been almost 7 years, and the work looks a lot different. We've got a team of about 16 people on our staff, and we work with over 250 different businesses in over 1,500 households to help them divert. We're estimating this year we'll keep over 4 million pounds of food waste out of landfills. But my day-to-day life these days is actually selling soil. So we finally have been able to get to a place where all of this food scraps that we're picking up and are composting ourselves is now being turned into a product that we're able to begin getting into the hands of people that are growing food for communities or for their families. And so it's a new journey for me in particular, and it's one that's super exciting. My business partner and I joked that, like, we started this because we wanted to become farmers, and we've just taken the most circuitous path possible to get there. And so I feel like at least I get to talk to farmers on a daily basis now. So that's the fun life I get to lead.
So, Erica, you want me to go ahead? Last but not least.
You.
So I came to Perfectly Imperfect. Ashley Weingart started the company, and her family owned a wholesale business down at the produce terminal in Cleveland. And so she was helping her family business, and she saw all this produce being thrown out the back doors because the grocers weren't buying it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the right shape, size, color. And so, or they just had excess of something and they didn't have a means of selling it until it was too ripe and not edible and thrown out. And so we started rescuing that produce. And we also work with local farms that don't have the means to necessarily sell the produce they have, to try to encourage them to grow more crop and harvest more of what's in the field and not leave it in the field. And we also knew, because Ashley was working out of the terminal right downtown Cleveland, being right in the middle of a food desert, we saw all the food insecurity that was happening in our community. After she started the company, I came to the company to help her. And previously I served as the healthcare lobbyist in Washington, actually, and then had worked with some local foundations. I'm also a boomerang like Michael, and I came back to Cleveland. And so I worked with a healthcare foundation and worked in community health improvement, and then started consulting on obesity efforts, working with Nestle and some others. So I came to the food because I was working in nutrition and wanted to improve public health and also sharing in the value. And my family actually is a 5th generation apple orchard family. So I feel like my grandparents are looking down on me with purpose, saying, oh, wow, you're back in the agriculture space. So it's been fun. It's been quite a journey, and I'm really honored to work with Ashley and her team.
That's awesome. It's actually really funny you mentioned the apple orchard, because SHS is located where the Shakers back in the day had their apple orchard. So we have a weird connection there between you and Shaker Historical Society. Erica, if it's all right, I wanted to ask a question from Facebook. Oh, Kelly, I see that you just unmuted. Do you have something to say?
Nope, just
okay.
Wanted to be prepared.
No, that's totally okay. So actually, this question probably would be best suited for you. So this is from Michael, who says, thank you for hosting this discussion. But he's curious if this panel knows now what happens with the recycling bags he sets out every week. Does the majority of the stuff end up in a landfill now? And should I be more vigilant about sorting good recycling, such as glass, paper, aluminum, from plastics?
So yes, unfortunately, the bags are not acceptable. And if we're picking up a recycling bucket and it has a bag in it, that's going to go into the landfill. It's not going to make it, whether we catch it or it gets caught at the facility, the materials recovery facility, they're just going to put it in the landfill. So everything that you meticulously put in that bag to recycle is just, it's not going to go anywhere. So you don't have to sort it. If you just put it loose in the buckets, then it doesn't matter if you mix the glass or the plastic, as long as it's the correct recycling. And we know that residents want to do the right thing and recycle the right way, but there is a lot of wish cycling going on, and just hopefully it'll make it to somebody that'll recycle it. And we need to stick to the 5 core items so that we can recycle right and keep the contamination out of our stream.
Very good. I think that kind of covered another question that we had as well. Erica, did you want to ask another question from the list?
Yeah. Sorry if you can hear the dog in the background. She wants to ask some questions too, I think. So you all mentioned a lot of really great community resources out there. For someone that's unsure whether the item they want to recycle can truly be recycled, like some of the to-go containers for food takeout or other of those miscellaneous plastics, what resources can they use to figure that out?
Well, I guess I'll go again. So you can go to shakeronline.com. We do have lists of what the 5 core items are and what plastics can be recycled. The Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District is a very good source as well. Most to-go containers are not recyclable at this time. They're considered tubs basically, and you want to your plastic bottles, your drink bottles, your shampoo bottles, your laundry detergent, those are all still recyclable, and you kind of want to gauge it on, you have a smaller opening than the body, that's a good way to say, okay, that's recyclable. But if you just have like a lid that fits on a tub, those are no longer recyclable for now. Some recovery facilities are managing it, but not in Shaker. The one that we use does not, so we cannot put those in there. I mean, those are good resources for finding out what you really need to put in there. I hope that people use them.
Certainly. So I think a clarification on just particularly that question. He wants to clarify that he's in Cleveland Heights, so not in Shaker Heights, but a neighbor, and wants to know if that's like a countywide facility or a countywide policy. Are you familiar with that?
What I do know is that we are in a consortium with the county. So I'm not sure if Cleveland Heights is in that consortium or not. I can't speak on that. What I do know is that we were given the option for pay per tonnage of recycling. If you use the blue bags, you pay more per tonnage. So because they would have to open, somebody will manually have to open them to pull out the items that are recyclable, and then discard the bag to another facility that will recycle that. So I can't really answer for Cleveland Heights though, sorry.
No, that's totally fine. So I think kind of a more broad question perhaps, and this might be something that we can, maybe all of us can talk about, maybe some of us can talk about, but this is something that we got emailed in prior to the panel. So this person gave us 2 questions, so I'm going to kind of go in order because they are separate. If a person wants to eat berries or cherry tomatoes out of season, it's very hard to avoid buying them in plastic shells or, getting them in any way that is low waste to the consumer or in production. Any suggestions for recycling or reusing them, or an alternate place to buy them, either in cartons, in bulk, or otherwise? And this is the same question re-yogurts. So think about like yogurt containers. Do you know of any yogurt brands packaged in either paper cups or more sustainable options such as glass or anything else? I'm thinking of one in particular. I know when I go to the grocery store, there's one that's called Wee yogurts, and they're little glass things, single serving with like a little foil lid. That's one I just know off the top of my head, but if anybody wants to chime in on that, please feel free.
Again, I would say that the tub there, I mean, there are some places that are taking the tubs. You would just have to find a different facility that would take them. Your bags you can take back to the grocery store. The berries, I know that like Whole Foods, and there are other places that will give them in compostable containers. So, I mean, even if you're throwing it away, it's still better than in the landfill than a plastic container is, but then you could compost it if you wanted to go that route. It is a lot harder. You do have to look a lot more for recyclable containers or compostable containers than, especially when it comes to berries.
Yeah, they mentioned berries and cherry tomatoes. So very specific examples. But I'm just thinking of out of season in general. Is there a way that we could sustainably get that produce out of season? Just because I know that I was having this discussion with my mom the other day. We never used to be able in Ohio to get strawberries, in the middle of winter. And now, thanks to transportation and, modern infrastructure, we're able to get them in the middle of winter when they wouldn't normally be able to make it this far. So does anybody have any comments on that? Or
I mean, this is for the overachievers listening, but can your in-season cherry tomatoes when they come up? Because usually in my experience growing any tomatoes, I have an abundance of tomatoes all at once that I can't possibly eat myself. So if you just set some aside, can your own, they're just as fresh in wintertime as they are right off the vine. So that's, again, an overachiever's answer, but kind of a fun thing to try out if it's that concerning or alarming to you about the packaging.
I mean, I guess from a produce perspective, I mean, we do rescue year round. We're not like local CSAs that might just be in our growing season. And so we're able to get different produce items, fruit and veggies. Now they're not all local. So I think, your question is, in our growing season, we are very limited. We've been able to source locally lettuce through the winter season because of our relationships with some hydroponic growers. And so I think as technology and growing changes and they're able to do more hydroponically or in greenhouses, we're able to support some of that. But we're able to usually source any produce. Now it's just not necessary. It's not local.
interesting. So just to kind of move this conversation along, the second question from these were both submitted by Mimi. She says, finally reordering takeout. So takeout containers, I'm thinking like coffee cups, any of those clamshell sort of ones. It's hard to arrive at the exact time to provide your own containers so they can, put their own in your own Tupperware or whatever container that you might have. Any thoughts about recycling plastic takeout food containers or the plastic pint or quart containers for soups, etc.? We've saved what we need, but would love suggestions or value suggestions rather of how to recycle the rest if possible. But also, are there sustainable options that you could work like legit? I'm thinking, Mike, if you have something to say about this from, kind of it's cafe sort of thing, would, having a reusable mug be acceptable or reusable to-go container? How logistically is that a feasible idea?
Well, it gets a little complicated, especially during a global pandemic, to take something, fill it, and give it back. We've tried to get clever and crafty with holding a cup with napkins and just pouring the drink into it and handing it back so we never actually touch it. Because we do want, obviously, to try and, not push that away, but there certainly has been a major shift for anyone doing food to doing wares that are disposable wares, essentially, because of the pandemic. I mean, we can't be necessarily reusing and touching things back and forth. So we use everything is compostable and plant-based. So that's a decision we have made. I know that, and I'm not an expert on it, but I know a lot of those soup containers you were talking about have a wax liner on the inside. And I think that's a problem when it comes to recycling. But again, that's not my area of expertise. But I know that we personally have chose to go compostable with our products for those reasons. So if you go to 319 Coffee, you don't have to worry about that.
I would agree with that. The COVID really does limit us because we were recycling our boxes. So our customers were asking, what can we do with all the boxes? And so we were actually having our courier service pick them up if they were broken down and left for them. But with COVID, people don't feel comfortable touching, again, just any contamination issues. And so we have stopped that program, and then we hope to open it back up. And we were donating the boxes to food pantries for food giveaways and that, so that they could reuse it for that.
Yeah, just to chime in, as Mike practices and mentioned, there are compostable takeout containers, which our company is able to process and ensure doesn't go to landfills and actually gets turned back into soil. So an invitation to anybody who's ordering takeout is ask businesses to use compostable products. If they don't know where to start, we're more than happy to help people in learning that process of what it means to go from using single-use plastics to moving to compostables. Unfortunately, there's lots of like greenwashing that takes place. So some things have, a green leaf on it, but that doesn't necessarily make it compostable. So a lot of what we end up doing is education with restaurants and cafes and things like that to make sure that they're sourcing the appropriate products that can in fact be composted, and then linking them back to our services so that the compostable products actually get composted.
Can I jump in with a follow-up question on that? So Dan, what you're saying is if I took the compostable takeout container from the restaurant and then threw it away my own garbage, like just regular landfill trash, that is very different than sending it to be composted at a facility like Rust Belt Riders, correct?
Yeah, and furthermore, so yeah, I think there's like three main assumptions around compostables, which make it a little bit confusing, but the drum I've been beating is actually that composting is far easier to comprehend than recycling, because the things that are compostable today will be compostable 100 years from now and were compostable 100 years ago. And so in that way, sometimes this can be more straightforward. It gets complicated with like manufactured products like the ones we're talking about. So compostable products must be certified through a body called BPI. It's the bioplastics industry. Very fun literature if you're ever bored. And so when that kind of material goes to landfill, it's actually like quite harmful. Is it better than using single-use plastics? Yes, but it produces the same kind of methane emissions that food would had it gone to landfill. So ensuring that if you're to use compostable products, that you are properly disposing of it is paramount. Now, that being said, because these products are manufactured in such a way, it does need to often go to an industrial composting facility, like one that we operate. The reason for that is that some of these products can be what's considered to be harder to compost items, meaning in order for it to begin breaking down, it needs to be exposed to higher temperatures than you might be able to achieve in a backyard compost pile. I, for one, have tried composting a compostable cup and a compostable bag in my backyard pile, and you'll see remnants of it for a long time. It's not going to harm your pile, but it might just take a lot longer to break down. So when in doubt, find a local composter, find a local compost facility, and ensure that those manufactured products in particular are going to where they're intended to be, which is a commercial composting facility.
Solid. Erica, did you want to ask another question?
I would love to. So we've been talking a lot about what to do with these waste products when we have them, how to recycle, how to compost, but what can we focus on reducing in the first place? I know some of you are food reducing pros, but just in general, any tips for the community on reducing waste?
I'd love to chime in. It's a little known, it's like an Easter egg in the Rust Belt Riders service. So we have a home pickup service where we can come right to your door. We provide your household with a 5-gallon bucket that you can put all of your compostables into, and then once a week we're exchanging that for a clean, empty one. Folks who use this service of ours also get access to a zero waste store, which is kind of like a thing we don't play up all that often. So For people that are trying to phase out plastic in their life, we offer like package-free or totally compostable laundry detergent, toothbrushes, dental floss, soap, and things like that. And so for us, thinking about like the way you reduce waste is actually by thinking about upstream consumer choices to create the conditions where that which you're taking into your house has an intended end use, or the product itself can be used entirely. On top of that, just to the topic of like reducing, I always need to mention that like we are self-deprecating business people in that like we truly and humbly submit to you to please put us out of business, right? Food waste is an abundantly stupid problem. And so if there is less of it, there's less of a need for services like ours. And so doing things like canning your tomatoes, learning how to pickle, composting yourself are all things that help to make Rust Belt riders an endangered species. Absent that, we want to be here for you, but really think critically about, like a prime example is like, just because arugula is buy one, get one free does not mean that you should get that second package if you know full well that it's going to rot in the back of your refrigerator. So consumer choices are critically important. And with that, I'll stop talking.
So our goal too is to help people rethink what's perfect. So many people, when they shop for produce, are looking for that perfect apple or that perfect carrot. But just because a carrot might have 3 legs doesn't mean that it's not edible. And in most cases, you're chopping, dicing, slicing anyway. And so what it looks like or the shape of it on the outside is you're going to use it in a recipe on the inside. And so we're trying to get people to think more that way. And with our boxes being random, we're also trying to encourage people to eat healthy and try new things. For every week, we release a recipe that goes along with the box for that week and features some of the produce that's in the box. And that really helps people to think how they can cook and make different dishes with maybe items that they're not used to cooking with. All of those recipes are available online to everyone. So it's uglyfoodmakeover.com. So if you're looking for sort of a good online plant-based cookbook, you can check out Ugly Food Makeover, and we release those recipes every Friday. But yeah, with our boxes being random, it does encourage people to use what they have in the box and try to use that rather than shopping for excess. Because I know I'm guilty when I go to the grocery store, I buy a lot more than I really need. But I know when I bring home my produce box, I'm going to use that, and I've stopped buying produce at the store.
Excellent. Does anybody else want to chime in and discuss reducing of waste or? No? Okay. So we have a couple of questions that have been submitted while we've been discussing things, which I think is great. Anybody that is watching this, please feel free to comment in either the Zoom chat or on our Facebook live chat. Again, this is being broadcasted not only through our Zoom, which you're watching live on Facebook, but also in our Zoom as well. That was a little redundant. But I will just kind of go through some of the comments that we've gotten on our Facebook since, and then I'll read the Zoom chat as well. So Jennifer asks, what is one thing you wish Shaker residents really grasped regarding sustainability? What questions do you wish that we were asking? Which I feel like is kind of the golden, be all end all sort of question. But that is kind of a serious question. So what do you wish that the Shaker residents, or even, just general people watching this all over Northeast Ohio, what do you wish they knew? Like, if they could know one thing, what do you think it would be other than the stuff that we've talked about? And you can go in whatever way you'd like.
So I'll kick in a few things. Just particularly given that it's Earth Day and this was kind of sustainability month for the city. Hopefully everyone read our recent Shaker Life magazine, which featured a lot of sustainability features. But, I think one of the things that we talk a lot about in the Sustainability Committee, and then the Sustainability Committee also has 3 subcommittees, which the public is always welcome to join. So that's renewable energy, stormwater and green space, and we have a group of high school students who help advise the city on sustainability matters, who, by the way, are kicking off an eco challenge on the 25th. So you should definitely check that out. I'll try to dig it up and put it in the chat. But, I think one of the things that we talk a lot about is that an enormous portion of sustainability is education and awareness. We've already talked a little bit about that here on the panel today. And, one of the things that we try to avoid is just overwhelming people, right? Because there are so many things, frankly, that you can do that, it can just seem like too much. And so it's just easy to kind of keep sliding, right? And, and keep doing the things you're already doing. And so one of the things, that we think is, kind of, giving weekly or monthly or, kind of the things that you can just start to do in little more dribs and drabs instead of just, kind of asking to drink from the fire hose. And so, one of the things that the Renewable Energy Subcommittee has been working on for a very long time is a very simple thing that literally takes about 5 minutes, but it is calling and switching over to 100% renewable content for your electricity. You can do this if you're part of our electric aggregation program, which is run by NOPEC. You can do it if you're outside of the aggregation program by going to the PUCO Apples to Apples website and searching for 100% renewable content. But it literally takes 5 minutes. all you have to do is find your customer number on your CEI bill, and you're good to go. And the impact of this, is quite significant because of the way power is generated. But also, there is very little cost. And in fact, we have people all the time who basically say, we actually saved money by, just getting a competitively priced program. So this is not something that's going to cost you a lot of money. If it is, it's going to be very minimal, maybe like $5 or $10 a month. And particularly if you're like a growing number of people in Shaker and have a new or used, and ideally used, electric vehicle, right? You're also swapping out that fuel for a renewable source. So that is my 1 5-minute thing that everyone can do when they get off this call.
Excellent. Does anybody else have anything they want to kind of contribute?
I'd love to jump in. So it's like, what's the question we want people to be asking, right? And
yeah,
I've been chirping this question in Michael Peters' ear for a while, but why is composting not a public utility or service in the same way that recycling is? I think that, and if not that, right, we get tax credits for disconnecting our downspouts. We get tax credits for installing solar panels. You can get LEED certified for doing some of those things as well. And yet compost and composting, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to get that same attention. And admittedly, it's self-serving, I recognize that, but the climate impacts of food going to landfills is as significant, if not more significant, than many of those other factors. And it just is unglamorous. And I think for that reason, just not like part of the conversation, right? I think we see the myriad of questions about recycling, and people are very passionate to see that work effectively. But the climate benefits of composting far surpass that of recycling even. And so be interested. Yeah, that's the question I want people asking or to have top of mind.
And also only takes 5 minutes to sign up for.
Right.
And I will just I'll throw out 2 quick things on that. One is, so the city is pursuing certification through Lead for Cities, which is a U.S. Green Building Council program, where we should hear next month where we end up. But waste is one of the 7 or 8 different categories, and that was the area that we scored the worst in. By far, we scored the worst in it. And the second thing is, at least we are starting to make progress. And thanks to the work of Dan and Rust Belt Riders, we did divert 135,000 pounds of food waste last year through Rust Belt. So that is pretty phenomenal.
And I have to just give kudos to Michael and the city of Shaker. We have more participation in Shaker than in any other city in our entire service area. So head and shoulders above everybody else. And we couldn't be happier to be providing our services to your community.
So come on, Cleveland Heights, you can do it too.
Wonderful. Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
I'll say something really quick, and it's probably blatantly obvious, but I always think about the term reduce, reuse, recycle, and the fact that it's in that order for a reason. Recycling something is like the last option. We live in such a disposable society with K-cups and disposable everything and prepackaged and small packages. And the reality is, just to create that package that sits on that shelf in that store already has a significant carbon footprint. So by reducing, what we purchase and saying, you know what, I don't need that, or I can buy it in a larger quantity with less packaging or what have you, and reusing things like a water bottle rather than buying a bunch of water bottles. Really, recycling should be our last option. And there's significant, like I said, carbon footprint associated with any product you see on any shelf.
Certainly something to think about. And I think that that's something that we can everybody here can kind of subscribe to. We've all heard the reduce, reuse, recycle, and it's in that, like you said, it's in that order for a reason. Does anybody else want to chime in before we move on? Okay. So this was asked a couple of different ways. So I'm reading in our Zoom chat, and also this was a question that was asked beforehand. So I'm going to kind of amalgamate these two. That's the big word today. We're going to amalgamate these two, combine them. So they're talking about, fertilizing, lawn treatments, that sort of realm. So kind of twofold. So what is Shaker doing to educate residents about the toxicity to the environment and people, especially children, pets, wildlife, and not using, fertilizers, pesticides on public properties, school properties, playing fields, or any of those sorts of public spaces? And then a sort of asterisk onto that is somebody wants to learn more about how to treat their lawn in a way that is good or not bad for the environment. Is there a way in which we can do that outside of, native plants and everything of that nature? Does anybody want to, kick off with that?
So I'll talk a little bit about what our Stormwater and Green Space Subcommittee does, because they talk about this stuff a lot. And so first of all, and Kelly can address this better than I, just about kind of how the city has gone away from using herbicides and pesticides in a lot of places. But, the Stormwater and Green Space Committee has been working with a whole bunch of stakeholders, including the Nature Center, for a certified lawn program that basically kind of the whole purpose is to help educate people on, frankly, how easy it is to do that conversion. It's something I've been doing for years, have very good results. Does not take a lot of time and is not that expensive, but it is a big education process, because again, it's very easy to just call the lawn guys or use the chemical stuff, but very easy to not do that. And so we are trying to both do it at a city level and help educate our residents about that. Also doing things, that subcommittee has an initiative called Grow Not Mow, of reducing some of the areas that are currently mown. So that they, do support, wildlife and pollinator pathways and, things of that nature. Would be more than happy to have, anyone join one of those subcommittee meetings and learn a little bit more about what we're doing in those realms.
And I'll just agree with what you said, that Shaker has definitely stopped using on the fields and that the pesticides, but I don't know much more than that. That's not my realm.
So kind of adding on to that, has Shaker modified its rules regarding any sort of lawn alternatives, from alternative grasses to ground cover to wildflowers? Are you aware of any of that, or is that something else outside of your realm?
Well, I know that they've been exploring different options. Our grounds department is not in my wheelhouse there as far as what they use chemicals. I know that they all have to, be licensed to make sure that they're using the appropriate stuff. So, and anybody in our grounds department could answer that question for you. If they just want to call the city, we can certainly address that. Yeah,
and some of that is, building and housing and planning too, just in terms of, what people can and can't do. And, there are some requirements, and there's some requirements for a reason, right? Like, so if you are going to compost in your backyard, there is a permit to do that because we want to help you and make sure you're doing it correctly, right? And not being a nuisance to your neighbors. But, so I think there are a lot of resources out there. There is this great sustainability page on the city website, which is a great place to start for a lot of these resources.
Excellent. And I know I want Erica, if you wanted to talk a little bit about, why native species are better. I know that the Nature Center does a lot. They have a plant sale coming up, and I'm sure that Erica will talk more about that. But do you want to jump in and discuss a little bit more about that?
I would love to. Thanks for the invitation. So the Nature Center at Shaker Lakes actually just finished up a 6-part series in partnership with the Domebrook Watershed Partnership. And it was called Bringing Nature Home. And we had different presenters talking about their native plant preferences and suggestions for people to try, and a little bit of the why behind that as well. I'm saying that first because we did record those, so they're available on the Nature Center's website. If you visit the plant sale page, you can find a link to all of those recordings. And the native plant sale is coming up in May. Online orders are closed, but you're still able to show up the day of the event. And we promote native plants because that's what's best for the habitat. The pollinators and the insects and the animals that live in our area rely on those native plants to get the nutrients that they need. And together it just creates a healthier environment and habitat for all.
Certainly. So I think that it's, certainly important that we include native plants. It's the same reason why you don't see palm trees in Cleveland. So I think that it's important to consider, when you're thinking about, doing landscaping or gardening, to include native plants, not only, for the aesthetic purposes, which is why, we all want our lawns to look the best, but also, for the ecosystem and, the habitat of which we live in, and we want to sustain that in the wildlife here. So this question is from our Zoom chat, which again, if anybody is watching via Facebook or via Zoom chat, please feel free to, keep asking your questions. We have about another, give or take, like 10 minutes. So feel free to keep asking. So this one's directed at Mike Vihar. And Kathy asks, do you purchase shade grown coffee? I don't actually know what that means. So
the answer is yes. The majority of the coffee that we produce is shade grown. There's a variety of different coffee plants, but having shade trees around them just helps with erosion issues, helps with just the survivability of the plants, and dealing with harsh conditions and frost and things like that. So yes, the answer is we do. And like I was saying before, I didn't talk a whole lot about it, but we really do. The nice part about our company and our job is we get to pick who we source from, and get down to the farm level and get to see their practices firsthand, and see that they are using those organic materials or materials they can find locally to try and combat some of the like a leaf rust that's a major issue for coffee plants in Central and South America, rather than using pesticides, rather using chemicals. And so so our coffee is coming from a place of organic practices rather than pesticides coming from like a large scale farm or something like that.
Excellent. So Trevor asks, and I see that they just joined our Zoom, but also asked on Facebook. They're just tuning in, so apologies if this was addressed. Are there plans to loop in lower income residents who can't afford a Rust Belt Riders subscription?
So, I mean, I'll just say, from our perspective, this is something that's been high on our list to try to figure out. We have not figured it out yet, in all honesty, but we recognize the enormous benefits to doing that. So it is something that we're working on, and always happy to take suggestions on better ways to try to accomplish that.
Just to chime in, that's something we're absolutely aware of, that we our service has barriers to participation. It's part of the reason I made my quip earlier that we really believe that in order to make services like this equitable, it should be a shared and collective responsibility of our communities and regions to prioritize services like that. Having said that, we recognize that we live in the state of Ohio and that there are lots of challenges and realities that we're up against, which is a big part of the reason why we started selling the soil that we produce. The hope is that we can use the revenue that we generate from the soil sales to continually bring the cost of our services down over time. Ultimately, we feel like if we can achieve cost parity with recycling, that there should functionally be no barrier to participating in services like ours. Having said that, we're not there yet, and so we're eternally grateful for all the early adopters that are helping to build the momentum and get the word out. So Trevor, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'll throw my contact information in there and hopefully we can figure something out.
Wonderful. Erica, did you want to ask another question?
Well, there was a comment there in the chat. I'm just going to add that Barbara raised, just because it goes with that last question, that the Unitarian Church on Shaker Boulevard has a program for $10 a month who want to bring their compost to the church parking lot. So there are some avenues like that that are trying to reduce costs. I know it may still be a barrier, but there's incremental efforts to get there.
Certainly. Thank you for that.
So the next question is thinking about sustainability efforts going on in the community. Are there any projects coming up at your various organizations you are excited about?
Well, there is one for me. We're doing a reconfiguration of the recycling center. If anybody has been to the yard to drop off recycling on the weekend, it is chaotic. With our large item drop off and our recycling, it can get really there, and trucks coming in and out of there. So I'm really excited to be able to reconfigure and make it flow better. When people pull up, they'll be able to really know where they're going and what items can go in and what can't go out. And I'm hoping to spend some Saturdays there just helping people navigate it and get some good feedback for it. But I'm really excited that we're doing that.
I'll just say that I mentioned earlier, we just launched these Diced and Easy recipe kits in the grain bowls, salad bowls, and water flavor, fruit infused waters. And so I'm excited for that because that's a new product. So that's always exciting when you add something new to the line of products that you're selling. But I also am very excited in my role as Director of Community Relations is really partnering with local organizations and employers in the community to support healthy eating and support healthy food access by partnering with us. We have several community pickup locations where individuals can purchase their box, use the community pickup code, and then pick it up and save $3 off their box. And so anytime you can offer a discount, it helps. And we don't currently have a location in Shaker, so it would be great to partner with Shaker to establish a community pickup location. And I'm just proud of our partnerships across the board. We have partnered with the YMCAs in Greater Cleveland. So they're one pickup location. They're one community pickup location. We've got one in Avon. We have one in Cleveland Heights. And we also, as I mentioned earlier, partner with employers. And that's really helpful too, because we know that the health of the workforce and the productivity of the workforce depends on the community in which they live. And we know that through social determinants of health. And so really partnering with employer wellness programs to start to focus on what employees are putting in their body and help keep the community healthy.
I'll chime in. It's gardening season, so we're just over the moon. I know that there's snow on the ground, so it might not feel that way. Hopefully this is the last of the snow, but this will be the third year that we'll be partnering with the Shaker Nature Center. So all of that food scraps that people are helping us to divert through our pickup and drop off services will be in bagged form and available for purchase at the Shaker Plant Sale, which is happening on May 8th. And we'll also be at the Larchmere Plant Sale, also slaying in our soil. And so, yeah, we're really excited about that. If you got any questions about soil or getting a garden up and running, feel free to reach out. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to gardening.
Well, and as someone who just picked up a couple bags of till soil, I can attest it is amazing. And I'll just throw out that, one of the things I'm excited about, since transportation is the largest contributor to greenhouse gases, as of a couple of years ago, actually, we create more greenhouse gas from transportation than we do from actually creating electricity, which is crazy. But the city has just put in electric vehicle charging at 4 locations. 2 of those locations, we're just waiting for CEI to literally hook up the cables to. But so by the end of the month, we should be in all 4 places. So that's City Hall, the dealership, Thornton Park, and the Larchmere and Kendall public parking lot just off of Larchmere.
Excellent. Did everybody speak on that, or are we missing somebody? I can't remember. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
I was gonna say I technically didn't speak. We're excited for the summer and to move further past COVID and continue serving the community safely. And you can pick up soil at 319 Coffee as well. You can see it in our window. We're excited about several things we have going on, some new cooperatives that we're working with, a new bag redesign, more compostable products. And I also forgot to mention that we roast on one of the most efficient roasters for its size on the market. So roasting is a heavily intense process of superheating large drums of coffee beans. And so the more efficient you can be, the better. So yeah, we're just excited about moving into warm weather and less COVID.
I think that's something that everyone is excited for moving into the summer months. I guess I'll talk about Shaker Historical Society. So it is gardening season. I myself in my personal life am a farmer. I live on a farm. I have my plants started right now. I've got almost 40 tomatoes started right now from seed. They're doing great. They did not like the snow the other day, but they're inside. That's fine. But at the Shaker Historical Society, we are starting a century garden project. If you don't know what a century garden is, this Saturday we are hosting an introduction. It's in cooperation with Story Forum, who's also located in Shaker. Essentially what we're going to be doing, it's a family sort of program. But if you're also interested, if, say you don't really want to, get involved in that, we're also doing a lot of other gardening activities. We have raised garden beds that are still available for rent for the community. And I think that they're really reasonably priced. They're $35 for members, $40 for non-members. That's for the entire season. And you get access to water, access to the raised beds. So I think that's a pretty sweet deal. If you don't have space to do it at your own home, or, you just want somewhere else to go, have a little moment in the garden, we can definitely provide that. And the Century Garden is going to be a program where we're going to have different centuries, agricultural and horticulture represented within these raised garden beds. So I think we're starting pre-1700s and then going on from there to present day. So that's going to be a fun and cool project. So if you ever find yourself at Shaker Historical Society this summer, be sure to check it out. We have a lot of other cool stuff coming up, but that's kind of my main thing, is I'm really passionate about being outside and, doing stuff with your hands and, pickling and, canning all of your stuff. I'm very passionate about that. So definitely come check us out. There's going to be a lot of cool programs coming up in the summer and in the fall regarding food and gardening. So
the Nature Center has some gardening programs coming up as well. You've all heard about the plant sale on May 8th, which we're very excited about. Thank you, Dan, for Rust Belt Writers for being part of that. We are also having a rain barrel workshop in May. if you are interested in creating a rain barrel for use at your home. That's in partnership with Donebrook Watershed Partners. But the last day to register is May 1st, so that's coming up soon. And tomorrow we have a virtual program featuring Vel Scott. She's the creator of the Purple Oasis Farm and Garden. And so if you are able to join us tomorrow evening from 6 to 7, you can hear her story on how she transformed a vacant lot into an urban farm and garden. I'm excited about that one myself.
So we have lots of cool stuff happening in Shaker, it sounds like. Again, I want to kind of start buttoning this up a little bit because we are kind of approaching the end. I'm sorry that we didn't get to answer all of the questions that were sent in. I'm very overwhelmed by the positive feedback that we've gotten from the community and from our panelists. Again, I want to just thank you all for being here. You panelists, you've taken time out of your busy schedules to spend a little bit of time with us on Earth Day to talk about sustainability, both in Shaker and larger Northeast Ohio, possibly even nationwide. So thank you again for sacrificing your time tonight to be here and to speak on this panel. It's greatly appreciated. But moving forward, we have so many questions that we never even got to touch on, which is kind of a shame, but got to do what you got to do. So if anybody has any lingering questions that you feel we weren't able to fully mention or you weren't sure about, again, this live stream broadcasted Zoom talk will be available forever as long as the internet exists. It'll be available on our YouTube page at Shaker History and on our Facebook page as well. And I'm sure everyone here who is also co-hosting with me will be able to have that available on their sites as well if they choose to be. So again, I wanted to thank every single one of you for tuning in tonight and our panelists for being here and speaking on their expertise and their passion for sustainability and, just talking about our lovely Earth on this Earth Day. But if anybody else has anything to add, I'm going to kind of close it up there. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for this. Happy Earth Day.
Yeah, happy Earth Day, everyone.
Today and next Wednesday is Stop Food Waste Day. So we're sort of combining. It's great.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to end the live stream now. If anybody has any follow-up questions, please feel free to email them to me and I will pass them onwards to the person that could best email them. So thank you again and have a wonderful night.